Following the closure of Mansfield loco sheds in 1960, responsibility for providing motive power for the Nottingham workshop route was passed on to Kirkby and Ashfield loco sheds. This lasted until 10th of October 1964 when passenger service were withdrawn following the Breaching report in March 1963. This was the only time in its history that Kirkby and Ashfield loco sheds provided motive power for regular timetable passenger trains, its main bread and butter being transporting coal. Motive power was usually Fairbairn 264 tank engines. During this period in the early 1960s, a Kirkby Footplate crew were at Nottingham Midland Station, and after turning the engine around and making preparations for the return to workshop, they decided to have some Footplate cuisine. Within minutes, the aroma of smoked bacon made its way down the platform, and waiting passengers resembled Bisto kids. A woman approached the Footplate crew and commented how wonderful the smell of the bacon was. In return, the Kirkby crew offered her a complimentary British Railways bacon sarnie, which she accepted. Just prior to departure, she thanked them for the most wonderful bacon she had ever tasted. On the arse, compliments will be ours. The woman then inquired into the mystery of what happened on the Footplate when either of them required to go to the toilet. Same shovel, me duck.
Well, the signal is on for the overnight freight. The train settles down for a long, boring wait. The driver walks over and he says to his mate, "It's time for our Footplate cuisine." So the shovel is thrust in the fire until red, cleaned off with a hose and then loaded instead with liver and bacon and a piece of fried bread. It's all part of the Footplate cuisine. Footplate cuisine is as ancient as steam. When Stevenson dreamed his obsessional dream, his marvellous engines were only the means of inventing Footplate cuisine. Well, the secret was stolen by Great Western Green. The poor sods were living on raw aubergines. Brunel saw his chance and invited the Queen and Prince Albert for Footplate cuisine. Brunel's invitation was royally refused. She said, "We are plural and most unamused. My husband and I are just simply not used to afternoon Footplate cuisine." Footplate cuisine is as ancient as steam. When Stevenson dreamed his obsessional dream, his marvellous engines were only the means of inventing Footplate cuisine. In the 90s, the racers had no time to stop. They opened the fire doors and tossed in a chop. It went straight through the tubes and out over the top, and they caught it for Footplate cuisine. In the 20s, when times are more troubled and hard, a crew was arrested in a colliery yard for roasting the thigh of a Great Western Guard, so desperate for Footplate cuisine. Footplate cuisine is as ancient as steam. When Stevenson dreamed his obsessional dream, his marvellous engines were only the means of inventing Footplate cuisine. Saturday evening was the gourmet's delight, with the windows reflecting the pale candlelight. The driver sits down in his jacket of white to partake of his Footplate cuisine. Some like a wildebeest stewed in red wine, others an ostrich leg pickled in brine, but I preferred something that died on the line, home cooking for Footplate cuisine. Footplate cuisine is as ancient as steam. When Stevenson dreamed his obsessional dream, his marvellous engines were only the means of inventing Footplate cuisine. When Thomas and Gordon were cold in the shed, the poor fat controller was scratching his head. "We'll have to take a Ringo for a Wimpy instead. We've no fires for Footplate cuisine." The porter's pet monkey, the railway cat, the crow on the roof and the lavatory rat all departed this world in a shovel of fat. Such excellent Footplate cuisine. Footplate cuisine is as ancient as steam. When Stevenson dreamed his obsessional dream, his marvellous engines were only the means of inventing Footplate cuisine. Railway historians seldom relate the wonders these cordon bleu chefs could create to keep in a permanent flatulent state from over-rich footplate cuisine. But these Epicurean experts have seen electrics and diesels take over from steam, and a warm, greasy takeaway chicken chow mein is the nouveau footplate cuisine. Footplate cuisine is as ancient as steam. When Stevenson dreamed his obsessional dream, his marvellous engines were only the means of inventing footplate cuisine.